Be sure to follow us on TikTok at MysticSage1 for daily anime content.
Hey everyone, it's Saturday, and you know what that means. Another My Hero Academia— Wait, seriously? I did it again? Well, hopefully this will be the last time this ever happens. So yeah, some stuff came up and I had to delay last week's My Hero review by 6 days. But fear not, because tomorrow's episode will be coming out on time. No more delays for this guy over here. Anyhow, let me do my whole recap thing. Basically, the League of Villains arrives in Dacus City, and immediately has to start fighting the Metal Liberation Army. The particular focus of this episode, however, is Toga and fending off Curious. She tries to do her old drinking blood and stabbing people trick, but Curious's quirk makes the blood Toga drinks explosive. So, needless to say, Toga gets messed up pretty badly. As she is inches away from getting killed, Toga's own quirk goes through a bit of an evolution, and she is now able to use the quirks of the people she's transformed into, namely Uraraka here. She is able to kill off her attackers, and goes to hide in a shed where she is later discovered by Twice. As he attempts to help her, Skeptic of the Metal Liberation Army sends Twice-like puppets after him to break him psychologically, as well as somehow bring him over to their side. I guess the question here is, will Twice break and betray his friends, or the opposite? Let's find out. So, we start off with Twice giving us a bit of his backstory. His scary eyes made people afraid of him. He had no family to support him at such a young age, and to top it all off, he accidentally runs someone over and breaks their arm. He's assured that even though things seem bad now, he could always pick himself back up. So, that was a lie. Turns out the person he ran over was an executive for a client with his job. Turns out, people don't like being run over, so they tell his company they'll be considering working with them, which in turn makes the company reconsider having Jin as an employee. And by consider, they mean straight up fire him. Having not a single soul to talk to, Jin uses his quirk to make a copy of himself, to provide a little bit of company. Eventually, he starts to make many copies of himself, and starts committing crimes with his army of him. Everything finally seems to be going right for good old Jin. Well, for a little bit. You all know what happens next. Now, Jin is meeting up with Girin for the first time, and explains his situation all while in a cheap bombastic Bagman cosplay. Here we can see Twice is so serious about getting Girin back safe and sound. He was truly the first person to make him feel not so alone in the world, to be empathetic to his situation. Say what you will about the villains, but at the end of the day, they're people too, and are in desperate need of empathy and understanding, even if they are bad guys doing bad things. We now cut back to the battle at hand, and Twice manages to break free from the puppet's grip in an attempt to save Toga. He's immediately countered by more puppets, who then restrain him and break his arms. This was a big mistake though. Twice refused to make copies of himself because of the trauma he suffered at the ends of his copies, in addition to being very cautious when it came to getting hurt, as he couldn't be sure if he was another copy or the real deal. Well, both his arms are broken now, and he's still alive. He now knows that he's the real him. With his trauma overcome, the Liberation Army is in deep trouble. Twice explains his quirk, as well as gives us a little flashback to his attempt at recreating the quirk erasing bullets, but failing to do so because of his knowledge on how they work. Feeling bad about not being able to help the League as much as he'd like, he swears to repay them somehow. Twice begins his assault, and it's massive. We're not talking 10 or 20 or even 30 Twices attacking the Metal Liberation Army. We're talking thousands of them. The Sad Man's Parade. Seeing the overwhelming numbers of Twice taking over the city, Redestro points out this obvious failure on Skeptic's part. You can see in Skeptic's eyes that he is extremely distraught, but is not convinced he's failed. Sure, whatever you need to tell yourself, buddy. Girin taunts the MLA leader, gloating about Twice now being able to match their numbers. While Redestro seems to be remaining calm about the situation, we can see something growing on his forehead as he monologues. Wonder what that's all about. The perspective switches back to Dabi and Getten having their battle of fire and ice, with Mr. Compress desperately needing a hand. Literally needing a hand, in fact. Dabi, in classic fashion, is only concerned about himself, and ironically gives Mr. Compress the cold shoulder. However, he does point out the plethora of Twices heading their way, and suggests he ask them for help. Mr. Compress compares Twice overcoming his trauma through love and courage to that of a hero's origin story, pointing out the irony as they're all villains. But Twice doesn't find anything wrong with this, asking if it is weird for a villain to save his friends. Twice offers to copy all of them too, but Compress stops him, as they still need some MLA members to throw at Gigantomachia, who he says will be awake in just an hour and 5 minutes. Back to Dobby and Getten, the Iceman explains his quirk a little bit more in detail. Not only does he control ice, but he can control the temperature of it. Meaning he can send some ice into water, lower the temperature to quickly freeze the water, thus giving him a seemingly never-ending supply of ice for him to control. Quite the impressive quirk if you ask me. And really, that's Getten's whole deal, is having an impressive quirk. He says the Liberation Army basically wants a society where your social stature will be linked to the power of your quirk. This doesn't really impress Dobby too much. And why would it? He has an impressively strong quirk, but with a significant drawback of it burning his body when overusing it. The League is definitely at a bit of a disadvantage here, and Dr. Uchiko sees that very clearly. So he plays a recording of All for One's voice to make Machia go into real shit mode and yeet himself towards Deka's city at a whole hour before he was supposed to. This is just not looking good for anyone involved. While Getten and Dobby hold each other off, Spinner and Shigaraki continue heading toward the tower Redestro and Giran are in. They're a bit concerned about the numbers of MLA members, but of course dozens of Twice show up to save the day. For a bit anyways. The politician shows up and gives a nice little speech to his constituents, which causes them to fill up with energy and enhances their attacks. Up in the tower, we see that a Twice copy actually made it all the way to the top and confronts Redestro with a few more copies of himself, and one each of Dobby, Compress, and Shigaraki. He also gives them this hilarious speech about not needing to worry about dying, because they're just copies. We also see that Twice isn't 100% over his trauma, as his copies start to argue over who's a copy and who's the real Twice. I think he should be good though, as long as he doesn't start killing himself. One of the copies decides to charge into battle, but is taken out instantly by just the flick of Redestro's finger. Yeah, whatever his quirk is, it's definitely a formidable one to say the least. Redestro reminds them of the hostage situation at hand and tells Twice that he'll kill Giran if he makes any more copies. Dobby and Compress go for a bum rush but are taken out, along with most of the Twices by Redestro's absolutely massive arm. I mean, come on, what did you expect? You just saw one of the Twices get his head taken off by the flick of a finger, and you thought you had some sort of advantage? How funny. However, one Twice managed to survive long enough to make another Twice, who then ran to Giran's side. Giran apologizes for his blunder of letting the MLA get their information from him, but Twice tells him he doesn't need to apologize as he didn't do anything wrong. Redestro goes in for the kill against the last Twice, but is stopped in his tracks by the Shigaraki copy, who somehow managed to survive. So naturally, the MLA leader wants to put the LOV leader to the test. He speaks of a woman whose child endured abuse because of their meta ability. She begged for her child to be able to live for a free and normal life, and that his ability was his quirk. She was eventually killed by those who opposed her pleas, but later in life, her pleas were used by lawmakers to change the minds of those that opposed people with meta abilities. However, this just caused people to suppress themselves rather than actually living as the individuals they truly were. Enter the original Destro, who claimed that that wasn't the future his mother wanted. Yup, that's right. Destro's mother was the one who coined the term quirk, and now his descendant is carrying out his will as Redestro. He then asks Shigaraki if he believes that some things that just want to destroy things really carry a heavier weight than they do. What an absolutely amazing line. Instead of giving him an answer, he just tells Twice to cushion Giran as the real Shigaraki approaches and uses his new and improved decay on the tower. This wasn't enough to kill Redestro though, who only looks bigger and angrier than before. And that's the episode. And all I can say is, wow, what an episode. There's honestly so much jam-packed in here. Twice overcoming his trauma, Machia zooming to the field, the origin of the term quirk and Redestro's convictions, and the beginning of what will be the big final battle of the season. My Hero is getting exciting, and I can't wait until next week, tomorrow's episode. From the looks of that preview, it honestly could end up being the best one of the season, but we'll just have to see. Anyways, that's gonna do it for me today, folks. Tell me, what did y'all think of this episode? Be sure to let me know in the comments below, and I'll be sure to see you all tomorrow on time for the next episode. Hey guys, before the video closes out, I just want to thank you so much for bringing your support over here on Mystic Sage. I upload every Saturday and Sunday and strive to bring you guys a review and some fun discussion content, so your viewership means the world. Also, if you want a little more from Mystic Sage, head on over to TikTok and check us out over there for more fun, bite-sized anime videos. I've also got an Amazon store where I sell tons of cool anime merch, so check it out. For real this time though, thanks again for watching. I'm Mystic Sage, and I'll see you next time with some more great anime content.